November 12, 1937, 12:47 a.m. A meat hook swung 3 inches from Johnny Walsh's face. He was crying so hard that snot ran down his chin. 12 hours earlier, he had kicked a 19-year-old boy in the head until something cracked. Now Bumpy Johnson was holding up a photograph of that boy's smile, and Johnny knew he would never see morning. 8 men sat tied to chairs in a slaughterhouse near the Harlem River 8 days earlier. They had worn white hoods and called themselves judges. Tonight, they were the ones on trial. The room smelled of old blood and rust. Meat hooks hung from the ceiling, swaying slightly in the draft. A single bear bulb cast shadows across the concrete floor. Bumpy Johnson stood before them holding a photograph, a 19-year-old kid named Henry Brown, smiling in his cap and gown, a Columbia rejection letter in his hand. Still full of dreams that would never come true. "You kicked this boy in the head 3 times. Bumpy said to Johnny Walsh, the youngest of the 8. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. That was the terrifying part. He died 3 days later in a hospital bed, still begging you to stop, still thinking he was in that forest." Johnny cried, shaking so hard the chair rattled against the concrete. 26 years old, yet he looked like a child, now a scared, pathetic child. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean you didn't mean to." Bumpy stepped closer. "You kicked him in the head 3 times while he was on the ground, while he was begging. What did you think would happen?" Standing near the door was a 20-year-old kid, Tommy Brown, Henry's younger brother. He had come to look his brother's killer in the eye, to say the words he had been carrying since Tuesday morning when Henry stopped breathing. In 15 minutes, Tommy would walk out of that slaughterhouse. He wouldn't see what happened next. Bumpy would make sure of that, but he would hear it. 8 gunshots. 8 men. By Saturday morning, those 8 bodies would be found in the same forest where they had tortured Henry Brown, tied to the same trees, in the same positions, the same method. This is the story of 2 trials. One was held by men who thought their white hoods made them gods. The other was held by the man who reminded them they were mortal. To understand what happened that November, you need to understand what Harlem was facing in 1937. The Great Depression had crushed Black America like a boot on a throat. Unemployment was over 50%. Families lined up at soup kitchens before dawn. Children went to school hungry, if they went at all. And the Ku Klux Klan was no longer just a Southern problem. When black families fled the South during the Great Migration, running from lynchings, sharecropping, and a system designed to keep them down, they believed they were running toward freedom. But hatred travels. By the mid-1930s, the Klan had cells in New York, Chicago, Detroit. Anywhere black people had migrated in search of a better life. They didn't march openly in the North. They were smarter than that, more dangerous. They wore suits by day, ran businesses, wore badges, sat in church pews on Sunday mornings. And on Friday nights, some of them put on white hoods and did things that would never make the newspapers. In the Bronx, a 15-man KKK cell met every Friday at Carlo's Bar in East Harlem. Back room, locked door. For 4 years they had operated without consequence. Crosses burned in empty lots. Windows were smashed at businesses that hired black workers. Men were beaten in alleys for existing in the wrong place at the wrong time. 11 murders in 4 years. All ruled accidents or suicides. All buried by friends in the police department. 3 young men would learn this the hard way, and one of them, a quiet 19-year-old, who only wanted to be a teacher, would pay for that lesson with his life. Tuesday, November 2, 1937. Cold morning at a construction site in the South Bronx. The pay envelopes came out at 8 o'clock. Same as always. Tony Caruso stood on the trailer steps calling out names. Thick envelopes went to the white workers, thin ones to everyone else. Samuel Washington had been running the numbers in his head for 3 months. White workers earned $2.50 more a day for the same work. He tried to let it go, but that morning was different. Tony paused at Sam's envelope and looked him up and down with a smile that never reached his eyes. "Washington, word of advice." Tony's voice carried across the site. "Stop reading those books during lunch. You think you're some Columbia boy? You're here with the rest of the colored." Something in Sam's chest tightened. For 3 months he had swallowed his pride. 3 months of yes sir and no sir, and for what? To be mocked for trying to better himself. He caught Bobby's eye. Robert Jackson, Bobby to his friends, stood 20 feet away. Built like a heavyweight but moving like a dancer. 17 amateur boxing wins. Bobby saw something in Sam's face and nodded slightly. Henry Brown was nearby too. 19 years old. A quiet kid who saved every penny. Studied at night after 12-hour shifts and kept his twice-rejected Columbia application in his desk drawer, still hoping for a third chance. Henry gave a small nod. 3 men. 3 nods. A decision that would destroy one of their lives. Sam walked to Tony's trailer and knocked on the door. "Mr. Caruso, got a minute?" Tony was behind his desk counting money, a cigarette hanging from his lip. He didn't look up. "What do you want, Washington?" "Sir, me, Bobby, and Henry have been working here 3 months now. Same hours as the white crew. Same work." Sam kept his voice calm and respectful. "We're just asking for equal pay for equal work." That's all. Asterisk for a moment. Tony didn't move. Then he stood, walked around the desk, and got close enough that Sam could smell the coffee on his breath. Asterisk, equal pay. Tony said, you think you're equal to my white workers? Asterisk, Sam knew the smart answer, but he had spent 22 years giving the smart answer. I think we do equal work, sir. I think that should mean equal pay. Asterisk, the slap came fast and open palm, hard across Sam's face. The sound echoed across the construction site like a gunshot. Sam's head snapped sideways. He tasted blood. His fists clenched at his sides. Every instinct screamed, fight back. But Sam knew what happened when black men hit white men in 1937. He knew about the jails, the chain gangs, the bodies that turned up in rivers. Asterisk, so he did the hardest thing he had ever done in his life. He unclenched his fists, straightened his spine, looked Tony Caruso dead in the eye, turned around, and walked away. Bobby and Henry were waiting by the gate. We're done here, Sam said quietly, touching his split lip. All three of us, let's go. Asterisk, they walked off that construction site to get the three black men who had just committed the unforgivable sin of asking to be treated like human beings. Asterisk, behind them, Tony Caruso watched from his trailer doorway. His face was red. His hands were shaken not from fear, but from rage. He went back inside and picked up the phone. Asterisk, Frank, it's Tony. I got three uppity ones who need a lesson. Asterisk, Henry's younger brother, Tommy, wasn't at the construction site that day. He worked the docks, different job, different hours. He had finished his shift and was home when Henry came through the door that evening. Asterisk, Tommy knew something was wrong immediately. Henry never came home looking like that, jaw tight, eyes hard, something burning behind them. Asterisk, what happened? Asterisk, Henry sat down at the kitchen table. Their mother, Clara, was in the back room resting. She had been sick lately. Asterisk, we quit, Henry said, and told Tommy everything, the conversation with Tony, the slap, the walk off the site. Asterisk, when he finished, Tommy was quiet for a moment. Then he said, you did the right thing. Asterisk, Henry shook his head. Did I? Sometimes I wonder if walking away is ever the right thing. Asterisk, you'll fight back someday. The right way. Tommy leaned forward. You're going to finish that Columbia application again. Third time's the charm. You're going to become a teacher. You're going to change things from the inside. Asterisk, Henry looked at his brother, 20 years old, working the docks, dreams of his own set aside to help support the family. Asterisk, you know what I want. Henry's voice softened, almost urgent. I want you to go to college. Not just any school, a great one. I want you to become something I never got the chance to be. Henry, I'm serious. You're smarter than me. Promise me you'll try. Asterisk, Tommy didn't understand why Henry was talking like this, like he was saying goodbye. I promise, Tommy said, but you're going to be there when I graduate. Front row. Asterisk, Henry smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Yeah, front row. Asterisk, neither of them knew that Friday night was coming. Neither of them knew that in 3 days, Henry would be tied to a tree in a frozen forest, begging for mercy that would never come. Asterisk, Wednesday, November 3rd. Carlos Bar. Back room. Asterisk, 8 men sat around a scarred wooden table. The room was thick with cigar smoke and whiskey. Asterisk, Frank Morrison sat at the head of the table, 52 years old. Gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses, looking like somebody's grandfather. He was the Grand Cyclops of the Bronx KKK cell and had been for 11 years. Asterisk, Tony Caruso was still talking, his voice getting louder. Looked me in the eye while he said it. Samuel Washington thinks his books make him special. Asterisk, Johnny Walsh leaned forward, 26 years old, the youngest, mean in a way the others weren't. Cruel from insecurity. Asterisk, what did you do? Asterisk slapped him, but he didn't back down. Just turned around and walked away like I wasn't worth fighting. Asterisk, Patrick O'Brien, NYPD, currently on desk duty after his third justified shooting, lit a cigarette. Washington, I know that name. Colored kid who reads too much. Asterisk, and he's got 2 others with him. Tony continued. Robert Jackson, fighter type, and Henry Brown. Saving money to apply to Columbia for the 3rd time, Frank Morrison pulled out a small notebook. Names: Samuel Washington, Robert Jackson, Henry Brown. Frank wrote them down careful, methodical, like he was making a grocery list. Henry Brown, Frank read from a larger folder. 19 years old, applied to Columbia twice, rejected both times. Works construction to support his mother and younger brother. The educated ones are the dangerous ones, Patrick O'Brien said. One gets in, suddenly they all think they can. Frank closed the folder. Friday night we pick them up after their dock shift. We take them to the clearing in Pelham Bay and remind them what happens to Colorads who forget their place. How far do we go? One of the others asked. Frank considered. Far enough that they never forget. Far enough that everyone they know never forgets. But keep them alive. Dead men don't spread the word. Broken men do. November 5, 1937. Jam 10:34 PM. Bobby, and Henry were walking home from a late dock shift. They had picked up extra work after quitting the construction site, loading cargo until almost 11. Backbreaking labor, but honest money. They were tired, sore, talking about nothing in particular. Sam felt it before he saw it, that prickle on the back of your neck. That animal instinct that says danger. He stopped. Bobby and Henry stopped with him. A black sedan pulled up beside them slowly. The window rolled down. A white man in the passenger seat smiled. Samuel Washington. Mr. Caruso sent us, says he wants to apologize. Wants to offer you your jobs back? Sam's heart was already pounding. 3 white men in a car stopping you on an empty street at night. Tell Mr. Caruso we're not interested. The smile didn't waver. He's not the kind of man who takes no for an answer. The back doors opened. 2 more men stepped out. Then 2 more, from a second car that had pulled up behind them. 6 white men. 6 guns catching the streetlight. Get in the car. All 3 of you. Bobby tensed. But 6 guns against 3 unarmed men, the math didn't work. Henry was shaking. Please, we didn't do anything. We just asked for fair pay. One of the men laughed. Fair pay. Listen to this one. A gun pressed against Sam's spine. Last chance car now. They got in. The drive took 23 minutes north into the Bronx, past the last streetlights and into the darkness of Pelham Bay Park. The car stopped at the edge of a clearing surrounded by trees. Deep in the park where nobody walked at night, they were pulled from the cars, forced to their knees in the frozen dirt, hands tied behind their backs, rags stuffed in their mouths. Then, the others arrived. 8 men in white robes and hoods, torches casting dancing shadows through the bare November trees. The forest was silent. Frost covered the ground. Every breath turned to vapor in the darkness. The one in the black robe stepped forward. Frank Morrison, eyes visible through the hood, holding no mercy. He pulled out a piece of paper and read from it like a judge reading charges. Samuel Washington, Robert Jackson, Henry Brown. You stand accused of crimes against the natural order, disrespecting a white supervisor, demanding privileges above your station, refusing to accept your place. He paused. How do you plead? 3 seconds of silence. The torches crackled. Guilty on all counts. The sentence is correction. You will learn your place tonight. He nodded to Johnny Walsh. Remove the gags. I want to hear them learn. What happened next lasted 3 hours. They started with Samuel. 2 of them grabbed him, ripped his shirt off, and forced him against an oak tree. They tied his arms around the trunk, pulling tight enough to make his shoulders scream. Johnny. Walsh stepped forward with a bullwhip, 5 feet of braided leather with a knotted tip. 25 lashes. Frank announced, count them. The first lash split the air with a crack like a gunshot. It hit Sam's back like a line of fire. He didn't scream. Not yet. By the 10th lash, his legs were shaking. By the 15th, he couldn't stand anymore. Only the ropes kept him upright. By the 20th, he was screaming. The 25th lash was the worst. Johnny put his whole body into it. The whip wrapped around Sam's side, cracking bone. They cut him down and let him fall to the frozen ground. Bobby was next. They knew he was a boxer. Knew about his 17 wins, his championship hands. This one thinks he's tough, Johnny Walsh said, circling him. Got good hands, I hear. One of the others stepped forward with a ball-peen hammer. Let's see how good you box after this. 4 men held Bobby down, pinned his right arm to a tree stump, extended his hand, his fighting hand palm down against the wood. This little piggy went too. Market crack, bone splintering. Bobby's scream scattered birds from trees half a mile away. This little piggy stayed. Home crack. 3 fingers on Bobby's right hand were destroyed in 30 seconds. He would never box again. Then came the branding. One of them had been heating an iron poker in a torch until the tip glowed orange. 3 letters were forged into the metal. KKK. This is so you remember, Frank said. Every time you look in the mirror, every time someone sees your neck, you remember your place. The smell of burning flesh filled the clearing, sweet and sick. Sam's body jerked once when they pressed it to his neck. Bobby screamed until his voice broke. Then Henry. Henry was the youngest, the smallest, shaking so hard the men holding him could barely keep him still. When they pressed the brand against his neck, tears poured down his face. But Johnny Walsh wasn't finished with Henry. This one's weak, Johnny said. Look at him, crying like a little girl. He crouched close. You're the one who wanted to go to Columbia, right? Wanted to be a teacher, wanted to be somebody. Henry couldn't answer. Let me show you what happens to boys who think they can be more than what they are. Johnny stood and drew back his foot. The first kick caught Henry in the ribs. Something cracked. Henry doubled over, gasping. The second kick hit his back. Johnny grabbed Henry's hair and yanked his head up. You want to go to Columbia? You want to be a teacher? You want to be equal? He kicked Henry in the face. Blood sprayed, teeth scattered across the ground. Johnny kicked him again and again. The third kick connected with Henry's temple, and something inside his skull made a soft, wet sound like a branch cracking under snow, like something breaking that wouldn't heal. Patrick O'Brien, the cop, looked away. Even he recognized that sound. Asterisk. That's enough, Frank said quietly. We're done here. Asterisk, they cut the ropes and left all three lying in the frozen dirt, beaten, branded, broken. Frank stood over them. Asterisk, if you go to the police, we come for your families, your mothers, your sisters, your brothers. Next time won't be a lesson, it'll be a funeral. Asterisk, the 8 men got into their cars and drove away, leaving 3 young men bleeding in the forest, wondering if they would live until morning. Asterisk, Saturday, November 6th, 6:45 a.m. Asterisk, a groundskeeper found them 3 black men huddled together near the forest edge, covered in blood and frost, barely breathing. Asterisk, Harlem Hospital, emergency ward. Asterisk, Dr. William Carter examined them one by one. Asterisk, Samuel Washington, 25, distinct lacerations across his back, both shoulders dislocated, second-degree burns on his neck. KKK, but he would carry the scars forever. Asterisk, Robert Jackson, 3 broken fingers on his right hand, bones shattered beyond repair, burns on his neck, he would live, never box again, but he would live. Asterisk, Henry Brown, everything the others had, plus head trauma, uneven pupils, minimal responsiveness, brain swelling. Asterisk, Dr. Carter pulled Clara aside when she arrived. Mrs. Brown, your son has swelling in his brain. We're doing everything we can, but I need you to prepare yourself. Asterisk, Tommy arrived 30 minutes later. One look at his brother, tubes everywhere, bandages soaked through, that horrible brand on his neck hand, something inside him died, while something else was born. Asterisk, who did this? Asterisk, Clara's voice was flat. KKK, that's what Samuel told the police. 8 of them, white robes, forest in Pelham Bay. Asterisk, 2 officers came, wrote gang violence in their notebooks, and left. Asterisk, for 3 days. Tommy didn't leave Henry's bedside. Asterisk, Sunday night, Henry opened his eyes, but they weren't seeing the hospital room. Asterisk, please don't hit me. Asterisk, Tommy grabbed Henry's hand. Henry, it's me, it's Tommy, you're safe. Asterisk, I'm sorry, I just wanted equal pay, please. Asterisk, Henry wasn't there. His eyes were open, but he was still in that forest. Asterisk, Tommy, tell Tommy. Henry's voice was getting weaker. Go to school, don't work construction, don't let them. Asterisk, I'm here, Henry, I'm right here. Asterisk, Henry's eyes focused for just a moment, long enough to truly see his mother, then his brother. Asterisk, I'm sorry, Mama, I tried. I just wanted fair. Asterisk, I know, baby, I know. Henry's eyes closed. Tuesday, November 9th, 6:47 a.m. Asterisk, Henry Brown died. He was 19 years old. Asterisk, the death certificate said cerebral hemorrhage. Everyone knew it should have said murder. Asterisk, Tuesday, 2:14 p.m. Bumpy Johnson's office sat above Small's Paradise, the jazz club on 135th Street, dark wood, leather chairs, a desk that had seen 100 deals and twice as many threats. Asterisk, Bumpy was 32 years old, built, solid, moving like a man who had won 999 fights out of 1,000. People said his eyes were the dangerous part, patient, calculating, missing nothing. He was reviewing numbers when the knock came. Boss, Clara Brown is here. Asterisk, Bumpy remembered Clara. Her mother had lived 2 doors down from his family when they first came to Harlem. That was 20 years ago. Asterisk, send her in. Asterisk, Clara walked in, looking 20 years older than her age. Her eyes were red, her hands shook, but her spine was straight. She carried a paper bag. Asterisk, Ellsworth. She was the only person still alive who called him by his first name. Asterisk, she walked to his desk, opened the bag, pulled out a blood-stained shirt, and turned it around. KKK, burned into the fabric. Asterisk, Bumpy stared at it, his face went completely still. That was the dangerous part. Asterisk, 8 men, Clara said. KKK. They took my son Henry and 2 of his friends Friday night, tortured them in a forest, whipped them, broke bones, branded them. Asterisk, she pulled out Henry's Columbia application. Blood had soaked through the edges. Asterisk, Henry died this morning, 19 years old. He wanted to be a teacher. Police called it gang violence. Case closed. Asterisk, Bumpy picked up the application and read Henry's essay about why Harlem needed black teachers, why representation mattered, why kids needed to see someone who looked like them at the front of a classroom. Asterisk, beautiful words, beautiful dreams. Dead now. Asterisk, the other 2 boys. Bumpy said quietly. Asterisk, they're alive. Samuel Washington and Bobby Jackson. They saw faces, heard names, know where it happened. Asterisk, I'll talk to them. Asterisk, Clara leaned forward. There's something else. My other son, Tommy, he's 20. I know that look in his eyes. He's going to do something stupid if someone doesn't stop him. Asterisk, I'll handle Tommy, and I'll handle the men who killed Henry. All 8, every single one. Asterisk, Bumpy walked around the desk. But I need you to do something for me. Go home. Take care of Tommy. Don't come back here. What I'm going to do, Claire, it's not something mothers should see. Asterisk, I want them to suffer. I want them to feel what my son felt. Asterisks, they will. I promise. His voice softened. But you stay clean. Let me carry this weight. Asterisk Clara looked at him and saw something she remembered from 20 years earlier. When they were both children, asterisk make them understand. Else, make them know why. Asterisk they'll know. Every single one of them. Asterisk Bumpy spent the next 2 days gathering everything. He visited Sam and Bobby in the hospital and listened as they described faces, names, what had happened. Tony Caruso, Frank Morrison, Johnny Walsh, Patrick O'Brien, the others. Asterisk his men, Illinois Gordon and Marcus Cole, tracked down connections, patterns, evidence where they met, when, who protected them, and they found the families. Asterisk Margaret Miller arrived at Bumpy's office Wednesday afternoon, 62 years old, gray hair, hands trembling. Her daughter Dorothy had been 19 in 1935 when Tony Caruso raped her. She reported it to the police. His friends buried it. Asterisk 6 months later, Dorothy killed herself. Asterisk Margaret brought Dorothy's photograph and a suicide note. 5 words in shaking handwriting. I can still feel his hands. Tony Caruso will see this, Bumpy said quietly. He'll hear these words, and he'll die knowing exactly what he did to your daughter. Asterisk by Thursday evening, Bumpy had everything: Dorothy Miller's photograph, her suicide note, files documenting 11 murders connected to the 8 men who met at Carlos Bar every Friday. Asterisk these weren't just Klansmen, they were serial killers who had been operating for years because nobody would stop them, until now. Wednesday night, 9:47 p.m., Bumpy's office door flew open. Tommy Brown, 20 years old, rage burning in his eyes, a cheap revolver in his hand. Asterisk Illinois Gordon moved from the corner, reaching for his weapon. Bumpy held up a hand. Asterisk stop. Asterisk Mr. Johnson, Tommy said. His voice shook, but his hand was steady on the gun. I know where Tony Caruso works. I'm going to kill him. Asterisk, and then what? Asterisk, then he's dead for Henry. Bumpy stood slowly and walked toward Tommy, not fast, not threatening. Where'd you get the gun? Tommy, asterisk, pawn shop, spent everything I had, asterisk, and what happens after you kill Tony Caruso? You thought about that? Asterisk, I don't care. Asterisk, your mother cares. Bumpy was closer now. Henry cared. You know what Henry said before he died? Tell Tommy to go to school. Those were his last words. Not revenge, not Tony Caruso. Tommy's gun hand dropped slightly. You kill Tony Caruso, you go to prison. Life sentence. Probably the death penalty. For a black man who killed a white foreman, your mother watches you hang. And Tony's 7 friends, they go after her. Asterisk tears streamed down Tommy's face, but his hand was still on the gun. Then what do I do? How do I get justice when the law won't help? Asterisk Bumpy reached out and gently took the gun from Tommy's hand. You don't get justice, Tommy. I do because I know how to do it right. But I know what you want. You want to look into the eyes of the man who killed your brother. You want him to know who you are. Asterisk Bumpy's voice was quiet and patient. And you'll get that, but not with this gun. Asterisk he walked to his desk and picked up Henry's Columbia application. Friday night, I'm taking all 8 of them. If you want to be there to see their faces, to say what you need to say, I'll bring you. But when the real work starts, you leave. You don't watch them die. You don't carry that weight. Asterisk why? Asterisk because Henry is your dream, his future. Bumpy held out the application. Your brother applied to Columbia twice. He wanted to be a teacher. Change things. Tommy stared at his brother's handwriting. You're going to finish what he started. Not with a gun with this. I have a lawyer who will handle the money, tuition, books, everything. It'll look like a scholarship. Asterisk, why would you do that for me? Asterisk, because your brother died wanting something better for you. And because this world needs people who change the law, not just people who break it. Bumpy paused. Be the teacher Henry couldn't be. That's how you honor him. Asterisk Tommy was quiet for a long moment. Friday night, he said finally. I'll be ready. Asterisk Friday, November 12, 1937. 11:37 p.m. Carlos Bar. The back room was thick with cigar smoke and laughter. 8 men sat around a table, whiskey bottles, guns piled in the center. The radio played jazz. Cab Calloway, singing something about Minnie the Moocher. Asterisk Frank Morrison raised his glass. 2 lessons that stick. Asterisk the door exploded inward. The jazz cut off mid. 8 men froze. In that silence, Bumpy Johnson's voice was the only sound in the world. Nobody moved. Asterisk 6 armed men came through fast. Professional, guns already aimed. Bumpy walked in last, wearing a 3-piece suit, calm and patient. Asterisk Tony Caruso's hand shot toward the pile of guns. One of Bumpy's men fired. The whiskey bottle next to Tony's hand shattered. Asterisk I said, don't move. Asterisk Frank Morrison tried to keep his composure. Bumpy Johnson, Harlem's so-called protector. You're making a mistake. We have friends, police, politicians, people who had, Bumpy said. Frank blinked. What? Asterisk you had friends? Past tense. Bumpy stepped closer. They're not coming. Frank. When they find your bodies tomorrow, they'll find the files too. 11 murders. Dead Klansmen don't get avenged. They get forgotten. Morrison's smile faded. Patrick O'Brien spoke up. I'm NYPD. You kill a police officer, asterisk, you're not a cop tonight. O'Brien tonight, you're just another man who shot James Green in the back while his hands were up. Asterisk Tony Caruso tried a different approach. Money, territory, whatever you want. Asterisk Bumpy looked at him with contempt. I want Dorothy Miller back. I want Henry Brown back. Can you give me that, Tony? Tony couldn't answer. That's what I thought. Bumpy nodded to his men. Tie them up. All 8, we're moving. Las 12:23, Alta Medi Malone's slaughterhouse, near the Harlem River. Asterisk, meat hooks hung from rails on the ceiling. Drains cut into the concrete floor. The smell of old blood never quite washed away. Asterisk 8 chairs were arranged in a row. 8 men were tied to those chairs. Asterisk Bumpy stood before them. On a table beside him photographs, letters, Dorothy's suicide note, testimonies from families who couldn't be there. Asterisk, you 8 held a trial in a forest last week, Bumpy said. Tortured 3 young workers. Killed a 19-year-old boy because he asked for equal pay. He picked up the stack of files. But Henry Brown wasn't your first. You've been doing this for years. 11 murders all buried by your friends in the police department. He paused, letting the words settle. You held a trial for 3 innocent men. Tonight, I hold one for 8 guilty ones. The difference, mine has evidence. Asterisk, the door opened. Marcus Cole walked in with Tommy Brown. Asterisk Tommy looked around slowly at men tied to chairs. His brother's killers, helpless now. They looked smaller than he had imagined, like accountants, like shopkeepers. Evil didn't wear a special face. That was the horror of it. Asterisk Bumpy picked up Dorothy Miller's photograph, walked to Tony Caruso, and held it inches from his face. Asterisk, you remember her. Dorothy Miller, 19 years old, 1935. You raped her. She killed herself 6 months later. Bumpy pulled out the suicide note. Her mother wanted to be here tonight. I told her no. I don't let mothers carry this weight. But Dorothy left a note. 5 words. Asterisk, he read them. I can still feel his hands. Asterisk Tony was crying. She wanted it. She asked for asterisk Bumpy backhanded him across the face. You had your trial in that forest. Now you listen to mine. Asterisk he turned. Tommy, come here. Asterisk Tommy walked forward on legs that didn't feel like his own 3 days of rage. 3 days of grief. 3 days of imagining this moment. Asterisk he stopped in front of Johnny Walsh. Johnny looked up with eyes already dead, crying, shaking. Asterisk, you remember me. Asterisk, Johnny's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Asterisk, I'm Henry Brown's brother. The name hit Johnny like a fist. You kicked my brother in the head 3 times while he was on the ground. While he was begging you to stop. Asterisk, I'm sorry. Please, I didn't mean asterisk, you didn't mean to. Tommy's voice rose. You kicked him in the head 3 times. What did you think would happen? Asterisk, I was just Tony said we were teaching him a lesson. A lesson. Tommy grabbed Johnny's shirt. He wanted to be a teacher. He wanted to help kids like him learn. And you murdered him for asking for equal pay. Asterisk, Tommy's fist was raised, every muscle screaming to bring it down. His hand trembled. His whole body shook. Asterisk. Then Tommy took a breath, lowered his fist, and stepped back. Asterisk, you want to know what my brother said while he was dying? Tommy's voice was steady now, cold. He said, tell Tommy to go to school. Not avenge me, not kill them. He spent his last breath thinking about my future. Tommy looked at Johnny Walsh really, looked that's the difference between him and you. He built, you destroy. And I'm going to spend my whole life building what you tried to burn down. He leaned close enough to whisper. My brother died asking for 50 cents more a day. You're going to die for giving him less than nothing. Johnny Walsh started sobbing. Bumpy's voice came from behind him, quiet and calm. Tommy, that's enough. Tommy straightened and looked at Bumpy. He's not a demon, Tommy. Just a coward, a scared little man who hurt people because he could. That's your closure. They're not powerful. They're not untouchable. They're just cowards who thought white hoods made them gods. Tommy nodded slowly. Bumpy turned him to face him. You're Henry's dream. This blood doesn't touch you. I carry this weight, not you. Tommy's eyes filled with tears. You came here to look Johnny Walsh in the eye. You did. Now go outside, get in the car, and when it's over, you walk away from this life forever. Asterisk Tommy stood there, torn. Then he looked at Johnny Walsh one last time. Asterisk Henry was better than all of you. Tommy said, he was kind and smart, and he never hurt anyone. And I'm going to be better than him. I'm going to become what he couldn't. And someday, I'm going to change the law so this never happens to anyone else. Then Tommy Brown turned and walked out of the slaughterhouse. The door closed behind him. Asterisk outside. The cold November night waited. Stars overhead. The bodies were loaded into a truck and driven north into the Bronx. Into the darkness of Pelham Bay Park, they were tied to trees in the same clearing where Henry Brown had been tortured. Same positions. Same method. 8 men who had played judge now faced their own judgment. Silent, final, absolute. Saturday, November 13th, 6:34 a.m., a groundskeeper found them. 8 white men tied to trees in the same clearing where 3 black workers had been tortured 8 days earlier. Single gunshot wounds, clean professional. Asterisk, Detective Robert Walsh examined the scene. His partner walked up, face pale. Asterisk, what do you think happened? Asterisk, Walsh looked around slowly. Retribution. Someone returned the favor. Asterisk, exactly. They found a folder in the car. Inside 11 murders documented. Names, dates, locations. Dorothy Miller, David Jenkins. All the cases the department had buried. Asterisk, Jesus Christ. His partner muttered. These men were monsters. Asterisk, Walsh closed the folder. Monsters who operated for years because nobody stopped them. He pulled out one of the white robes and found a KKK membership card. Asterisk, so what do we do? This is 8 murders. Asterisk, Walsh looked at his partner. You read about Henry Brown, 19-year-old kid who died Tuesday. We closed that case in 2 hours, called it gang violence. Asterisk, his partner looked at the trees, at the blood still staining the bark from last week, and we closed Dorothy Miller's rape case. And David Jenkins' lynching. Patrick O'Brien was one of them. By the way, shot James Green in the back, called it justified. Asterisk, a cop. Asterisk, yeah. You want to open that can of worms. Newspapers asking why the NYPD protected a KKK cell that murdered 11 people. His partner was quiet. Or we do what we did for Henry Brown. We write gang violence. We close the case. Captain Riley made the call, an hour later. Gang violence. Internal dispute. Close it. Asterisk, the 8 bodies made the paper's front page for a week. Bronx KKK, cell destroyed in gang violence. The files found in the car were leaked. Nobody knew by whom. Suddenly, everyone knew what these men had done. Dorothy Miller, David Jenkins, all the others. Names that had been buried were now spoken aloud. Asterisk, the remaining KKK members in the Bronx disbanded within a week. Asterisk, the message had been received. Asterisk, Harlem protects its own. Asterisk, Samuel Washington recovered slowly. The scars on his back faded from angry red to pale white, but they never disappeared. The brand on his neck he covered with high collars for the rest of his life. Asterisk, in 1940, he became a teacher PS 139 in Harlem, English and history. He taught for 31 years. Every November 9th, he would pause his lesson and tell his students about Henry Brown. Asterisk, his name was Henry Brown. He was 19 years old. He wanted to be a teacher, and he died because he believed all people deserved to be treated equally. Asterisk, Bobby Jackson never boxed again, but in 1939, he opened a gym on 125th Street. He called it Henry's Gym. He trained young fighters for 22 years, teaching them that the fight outside the ring matters more than the fight inside it. Asterisk, Tommy Brown enrolled at Columbia in the fall of 1938. Every semester, he visited Bumpy's office with his report card. Bumpy would look at it, nod once, and say the same thing. Asterisk, Henry would be proud. Asterisk, in 1942, Bumpy sat front row at Tommy's graduation. He didn't clap, didn't cheer, just nodded once when Tommy caught his eye. That was enough. Tommy graduated with honors, went to Columbia Law School, graduated top of his class, but he didn't become a lawyer. He became a professor constitutional law, civil rights at the same Columbia University that had rejected his brother twice. Asterisk, for 42 years. Professor Thomas Brown taught in lecture halls that might have been Henry's. He testified before Congress 3 times, supporting Brown v. Board of Education, the Civil Rights Act, and the Voting Rights Act. He helped write legislation that would have made his brother weep with joy. Asterisk, he kept a photograph on his desk, 2 boys smiling, arms around each other. Harlem, 1935, Henry and Tommy, before everything. Asterisk, when students asked about it, Tommy would tell them, my brother Henry, he was going to be a teacher. He would have been better at it than me. Double quotes. Asterisk, what happened to him? Asterisk, Tommy would pause. He died fighting for something simple: equal pay for equal work. He died because 8 men thought he didn't deserve basic human dignity, and I became a teacher because he couldn't. Asterisk, did those men face justice? Asterisk, Tommy would smile slightly. Yes, they did. Asterisk, in his will, Professor Thomas Brown left his entire estate to establish the Henry Brown Scholarship. Full tuition for students from Harlem who wanted to become teachers. Every acceptance letter included a photograph of Henry Brown and a single line. Asterisk, he wanted to be a teacher. You will be. 2 trials happened in November 1937. One was held by men who thought their white hoods made them gods. Asterisk, one was held by the man who reminded them they were mortal. Asterisk, 8 men learned that night that Harlem wasn't a hunting ground. It was a kingdom, and kingdoms have protectors. Asterisk, Henry Brown wanted to be a teacher. He died at 19, but his brother became one instead. And hundreds of students have gone to college because of a scholarship in Henry's name. Asterisk, was it justice? Was it revenge? Maybe it was just necessary. Asterisk because in 1937, when the law failed and the police looked away and 8 men in white hoods thought they were untouchable, someone had to remind them they weren't. Someone had to say, not here, not in Harlem, not to our people. Someone had to protect the kingdom. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. Drop a like if you believe Henry Brown deserved better. Leave a comment when the law fails. What's left? Turn on that notification bell. Asterisk, and remember, Henry Brown wanted to be a teacher. His brother became one instead. Asterisk, that's not just a story. That's a legacy.